We have two points of this meeting. The first is the open session to pay bills and discuss open session stuff. At the end of the open session, we'll adjourn to executive session to take on some legal issues associated with this project. So with that, John, if you could start so we can get going.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. And I'm just going to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So good to see everybody. As Steve said, brief agenda here. Basically, we're going to do three things. We're going to talk about invoice approval. We're going to talk about the ad services proposals that were brought up at a prior meeting. And then Kevin will give us a work update on HVAC and any remaining items. As for existing invoices, there are two. These invoices have been hanging on and out there because we really haven't done this since March, I believe, was our last building committee meeting where we voted invoices. The two invoices are one invoice for Vertex in the amount of $1362.25, which basically bills out the rest of our original contract that we'll refer to again when we get to the ad services. Then there was a Valley Communications invoice for audiovisual enclosures that was just never paid. It's nothing new. These are the boxes that we put in right before the school was opened. The boxes were switched. George had to go out and buy some. The original boxes were given to the school. This invoice fell through the cracks and was never processed. But we've been tracking it for what seems to be 7 or 8 months now. Those two invoices together total $2,287.75. If I could have someone, first of all, any questions? Okay, if someone could make the motion that's at the bottom of the screen, that would be awesome.
I will motion to approve the Vertex and Valley invoices in the combined amounts of $2,287.75.
Very good. Is there any discussion? If there's none, we need a roll call vote for or against the motion.
So Marianne, perfect. Marianne seconded. Yep.
Perfect.
Okay. Want me to run through it, Steve?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Steve Durrett.
Durrett, yes.
Amber.
Bach, yes.
Marianne.
Stannard, yes.
Anita.
Oh, yes.
Kelly. Oh, you're on mute, Kelly.
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you. Oh, and
Andrew's on.
Andrew's on. Do you want to redo the vote, or do you want to just move to the next one?
Andrew, can you see what we've got on the screen? He's trying to figure out what's going on, I guess.
He's still connecting.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. We have a quorum, so that's a valid vote.
Okay, great. That's 5-0. Okay, second. So as you all know, there are a number of Gilbane invoices. There's still a 7-figure balance to be paid out on the project. Basically, invoicing was stopped from Gilbane, or we stopped processing invoices to Gilbane based on discussions about liquidated damages. Those discussions will continue in the executive session, but assuming a possible settlement with Gilbane, what we wanted to do is present these 5 invoices for February through June. And you can see the motion below. Basically, it's a motion to approve contingent upon successful negotiations come out of the executive session. This means we won't have to come back if the executive session is successful and we reach an agreement, then these things can go through and be processed. If obviously the executive session is not successful, you know, obviously these would not move forward without further discussion. So these are the monthly invoices from February through June of 2023. All of these were reviewed by Vertex and signed off by HMFH. And the total value of those invoices is $743,687.20.
So as you see, the motion at the bottom of the page is that in open session, should we approve this, it would be still subject to the outcome of negotiations in executive session, and therefore what it would allow to happen is that upon such a positive result, I would be authorized to execute the payment on behalf of the committee. So that's the nature of this. This is to allow this to have been discussed in open session, so that if there is, if there is an agreement of the committee in the settlement approach, then they could be paid without having to come back into open session. So I think Kevin is prepared, I think, to speak to this. And if you, John, you probably could respond to whether that is necessary, or should we just go ahead?
No, you know, Kevin's good. We have Kevin to do a project update at the end. Okay. We're good. This is all of this work has nothing to do with any of the change. This is all contract work, has nothing to do with changes. The reason it was held is because if we had paid these, we would be giving up the funds that we would be using to assess LDs. So if someone can make the motion and second it, we can run through I can run through the roll call.
Sure, I can make the motion again. Motion to approve Gilbane payment requisitions 35 through 39 in the combined amount of $743,687.20, which is subject to the approval of the Gilbane negotiations, as will be discussed in executive session, upon which Steve Durrett is authorized to execute payment on behalf of the committee.
Bradley, second.
Thank you, Andrew.
Great. Roll call. Steve?
Durrett, yes.
Amber?
Yes. Bach, yes.
Marianne?
Standard, yes.
Anita?
Patel, yes.
Kelly?
Giacopello, yes.
Andrew?
Bradley, yes.
Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Okay, thanks, guys. Okay, next item, we're going to talk again about the HMFH and Vertex additional services proposals. These were discussed as far back as September, October of last year. To begin with, we got or started talking about them. We got the HMFH proposal in December, but because of the issues with contract balances, you know, we wanted to make sure that obviously we had the funds. In the end, we have the funds. We have the funds even without any settlement in the next session, but we've written this motion similar to the motion we just had for the Gilbane. So again, given all of the work with geothermal, additional work and the extended construction duration, HMFH prepared the attached request for additional services, totaling $88,083.08 to cover obviously the time period of all the additional work for the geothermal consultant, as well as their own additional construction administration. Excuse me. Are there any questions on this?
Is the motion available on the screen?
I did them. I did them together, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah. So same thing. So let me go through the Vertex one. Basically, for Vertex, it's very similar discussion. Our original amendment was based on construction completion in November of 21. With our contract value, we were able to actually stretch that an additional 10 of 12 months with the existing budget. At this point, to cover that CA, we basically had to spend all of our closeout monies. And so what we are requesting is replenishing of those closeout monies in the amount of $84,302 to cover the closeout. At this point, we've probably spent into that already about 16 to 18,000. As you all know, if you've done an MSBA project before, the closeout goes on for months and months and months. Right now, they're averaging about 16 to 18 months, in which time we have to continue to do monthly reports, budget requests, change orders, all of the things related to the closeout of the project. What you can see here on the right is the MSBA form amendment that we would be using. You can see the difference between our original contract value of $1,681,451 and $1,765,753 is the $84,302 for the completion phase of the project. Any questions on that? Okay.
This is Andrew.
So,
Actually, if I may go back very quickly to a question about the geothermal.
yeah.
And I apologize, I didn't jump in before we made the transition. So I'm curious, knowing that there's still work, I think there's still geothermal work that's being done, or there's still fixes being done. What can we say that this amount that we're going to be approving, what does that cover us through in terms of the delivery and the final delivery of the product?
Well, this, Andrew, covers you through the final delivery of the product. The HMFH isn't going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. And you'll hear from Kevin that they're not going anywhere. So this, you know, the closeout pieces of the work, this is really, I would view this more as for all of the additional time, but it doesn't put us to a point and then we're going to come back for more. This reconciles us through now, and we all know what we need to do to finish.
So we believe that there still may be additional expenses to finish it, but this just brings us to, this is the last.
This includes that. So basically, HMFH and Vertex understand what we need to do to close out an MSBA project. We have more of the work to do at this point than HMFH. HMFH, as I would characterize more as, they're trying to make up for additional costs spent. What we're trying to do is replenish costs spent because we still have a bunch more work to do for you guys.
Okay, I think I understand that. Thank you for the clarification.
No problem. So basically the motion here is motion to allow Steve Durrett to execute a contract amendment with HMFH in the amount of 88,083.08 and Vertex in the amount of 84,302.00, contingent upon successful resolution of the Gilbane claims that will be discussed in the executive session to follow.
So likewise, this allows us to have considered this in open session. If there's a positive vote to it, I would not release the money unless we're successful in the final negotiations in executive session.
I'll move that. I'll make a motion to allow Steve Durrett to execute a contract amendment with HMFH in the amount of $88,083.08 and Vertex in the amount of $84,302, contingent upon successful resolution of the Gilbane claim that will be discussed in the executive session to follow.
Second.
Bradley, second.
Oh, Marshall, second.
We'll give Shelby one. Okay,
Very good.
Roll call. Steve?
Durrett, yes.
Amber?
Bach, yes.
Marianne?
Stannard, yes.
Anita?
Oh, yes.
Kelly?
Giacopello, yes.
Andrew?
Bradley, yes.
Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Okay, thanks, guys. Okay, last item we have for this portion of this evening is a work update. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to talk about where we are with HVAC and the ongoing work there. And then also the remaining items, there are still a handful of items that will be addressed, now that, assuming funds flow. And Kevin, why don't you jump in?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. So first, probably the most important one and the most frustrating topic is the HVAC system, specifically the multi-stack unit. As we all know, it's been a long journey with this process, starting off with the fluid that was in the system, and that is something that we all faced for the first time. That was a very confusing issue, and I think we're past it at this point. Matter of fact, I'm very confident to say that we're past it. So as of I think maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, we had the multi-stack tech come on site with the controls manufacturer or the controls subcontractor, the primary mechanical contractor, and also the local manufacturer's rep, New England Applied Mechanical Services, or whatever their name is. So all the technicians met up and we talked on site. Bill Gabarino was present for the meeting, and I preface that with all those people because everybody confirmed that what was being seen in the unit had nothing to do with the first issue we had with the fluid that became a slime, for lack of a better word, where it congealed. So they had checked the strainers periodically and gone through everything. So the alarms that we're seeing now are not related to the issue that was previous. We've moved past that, we've resolved that, and that was the biggest concern from pretty much the subcontractor side and the Gilbane side, because no one had ever experienced it before. So we're past that, I believe, and they confirmed it, and KMD continues to check the strainers and the filters to ensure that there's nothing there. So where these alarms come in and why it's been taking so long to resolve it is the entire time we thought it was a factory setting that we needed to get the factory rep with their specialty technician and the local manufacturers married with the controls manufacturer to try and troubleshoot these alarms, because what was coming in and reporting, it wasn't consistent. It wasn't at the same time or the same temperature or when the same valve opened or whatever it was. There was no consistency from what was being reported back. So once they came on site and troubleshoot, they made some adjustments. And John, sorry if I'm going into too much detail, but I think it's important just because of where we are in the process right now is they've reset the factor. They tweaked the unit while we were on site, and everybody was optimistic that that was going to resolve it. But the local manufacturer's rep, they noticed something in a compressor that was kicking on and kicking off while we were standing there. So what they've deemed now is we got different alarms when the factory came in and did their settings. So we've reset the unit back to the factory default settings, and we've ordered the new compressor. So the way that I understand it is the compressor was sending out intermittent issues that was creating some of these alarms in the system. Couple that with some timing issues with the controls, where a control needs to report something back after a pump shuts off, and it was reporting too quickly and not allowing the pump to fully ramp down and shut off. So there's a lot of words to say. We are getting to the end of these alarms. We have KMD's full support and their controls subcontractor, and they've been working with Bill Gabarino, and Bill's been very beneficial in the process because he's documenting the logs of the alarms and feeding them back. So we did some trending report that was taking trending, I think, every 10 seconds to continue to troubleshoot that. And that's basically just sending out a report of what the equipment's doing every 10 seconds. It's a pretty common thing. Sometimes it's every hour or every change in settings, whatever it may be. But we took it down to the 10-second interval, and I think that's what open the idea that this intermittent compressor VFD issue could be the problem. So where we are as we stand today, KMD is still involved in staying in contact with Bill Gabarino. The replacement part has been ordered, and once that comes in, they'll be able to switch that out. I confirm that they would be able to switch that out without interrupting anything, any service or any climate condition within the school. So once that comes in, we'll stay in touch with Bill Gabarino and get that installed. And then the other aspect of this is we're going into the shoulder seasons where this unit is going to be heating and cooling, which that's a good test of the unit, because we've come through a heating or a cooling season this summer, and now it's going to be transitioning back and forth depending on the demands of the spaces and thermostats in the building. So it's really going to push this unit to perform the way that it should be. So where we are, we're still getting alarms, but the subcontractor is chasing them out with Bill Gabarino. We hope that as soon as this compressor is changed out, that it should alleviate the nuisance alarms, if you will, going forward. Before I move on to any of the other updates, I'll pause there and see if there's any question, because that was a lot of words. So I'll hold and see if anybody has anything.
Mary Ann, how has the performance been since you started school this month?
Mary Ann, you're on mute. There you go.
I just realized the performance went well throughout the summer. We did have an issue, forgive me, I forget if it was last week or the week before, because they're kind of blurry at the moment, where we didn't have the AC on one of those very warm days. And Bill kept getting alarms and trying to address the issue, and not until some of the team members came the following morning did we get back on track. But other than that, it has worked well.
Yeah, and Mary Ann, I think that was the outcome of us messing with the unit in the wrong way. The week before that is when we went in and the factory representative tweaked the unit based on what he had seen on site, and that intermittent problem. I can't speak intelligently of what happened on that exact day, but that's when they determined to come back in and set it back to the default settings and replace the compressor.
Correct. No, that's exactly right. It was the Thursday before, and then, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Hey, Kevin, if you could move on.
Yep. So that's a majority of where we are on, just to get that unit running without alarms. So the second step to that part, to closing out what is needed for the project, is to final balance and commission that piece of the equipment. And there may be one or two pieces that are hanging out there where the commissioning agent just needs to check a few controls. And the game plan there is for get the alarms to clear, or at least have an understanding of why the alarms are happening, so that we can bring the control subcontractor in with the balancer, with the commissioning agent, and do one last meeting on site to go through and check out the units. So as far as like meeting the requirements of the MSBA or the contract terms, we will owe a final balancing report, and then the commissioning agent will owe a final commissioning report, both of which everybody's on board to handle at the same time as soon as we are comfortable with the multi-stack unit.
And then
on top of that,
just
sorry,
1 second, just for the town, once that commissioning report is done and any items listed in it are addressed, the commissioning agent will issue the commissioning agent's certificate of completion. That's one of the 5 or 6 critical closeout documents that are required by MSBA to get the audit process started. There's lots of other stuff before that, but that essentially signals the end of the commissioning agent's assignment. So that'll be, it's everything Kevin said, plus any work necessary to clear any items that may be in that commissioning agent's report. But it should be an easy lift because we are down to just a few pieces of equipment at this point. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Yep. So that's pretty much the mechanical side of what's remaining. And then on top of that, there is some landscaping items. There's a landscaping punch list with a few items on it that there's all relatively minor things, some caulking here or some touch-up paint. And the 2 items that I see as a bigger issue is just replacing 2 pine trees that didn't make it through the summer. The landscaper, Central Nursery's on board. He's willing to come back out, and it basically boiled down to a money issue because we were holding all of his money. He wasn't willing to come back out. So that's and then once he has done that, or well, actually simultaneously, Royce Brothers, the site contractor, has to do a quick resolution with some handicap parking on the north side of the building, and which they are also in agreement to resolve. And once they do that, we will be able to have Welch Brothers come in and do the final survey and take care of the requirements for the town. So the requirements for the town is to provide a final as-built survey. They have probably 90% of the information based on previous submissions, and it's just a matter of having Welsh come back out for 1 day on site and shoot the grades at the parking area that we have to correct, and a few miscellaneous areas on catch basins and so forth that the town specifically requested. And I believe that's the extent of what's remaining out there.
Is there additional seating of the lower field that was going to happen through the
Thank you,
project?
Marianne.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's one of the, no, that's a good reminder. Thank you. That's part of the landscape punch list. I couldn't recall the items. There's probably, going from memory, and it's been a few weeks since I read it, but there's probably 3 to 5 locations where there was additional seeding or weed control or pruning that just has to be taken care of. Nothing major, but he said he'd come out and take care of it all when he comes out to plant the 2 pine trees.
Okay, great.
So that was seeding as in SEED, not seating, right? Like things that you sit on.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I heard his answer and I
bare
was like,
spots.
I'm not hearing a seat.
Yeah.
Seating's cheaper too than seating.
Really easy to do.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, does that complete then the open session information, John?
Sorry, Steve, I just want to thank Kevin for being on and for all the detail. I know he probably felt like he was talking for a while, but it's been a while since we've been together. So really appreciate the the update and understanding what's going on.
Yeah, of course. Hopefully it was enough words to understand it, because it hasn't been an easy issue, that's for sure.
Appreciate it.
That's the end of our open session agenda, Steve.
Okay, at this point then we'll close the open session and move into executive session, which I think we have to do by roll call vote, at which time, if it is quorum vote, then we would close this session and move into the executive session codes to meet again in executive session.
Do you need a motion and a second for that, Steve?
Yes, and then we need a roll call vote.
Okay.
I move
I
that
think
we
this-
go into executive session by roll call vote. Is there a second?
Standard seconds.
Okay, great. Roll call, Steve,
Durrett, yes?
Amber,
Bach, yes.
Marianne,
Standard, yes.
Anita,
Patel, yes.
Kelly,
Jacopello, yes.
Andrew,
Bradley, yes.
Shelby.
Marshall, yes.
Great.
Okay, we'll all see you in with the other codes. Let's say that we